Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast, the podcast where digital discussions, the worlds of pop culture, social media, sports, TV, film, everything. Really, as always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, you know me as PD Beats. We are indeed in the golden age of television, and this summer a lot of amazing shows debuted, ended, and we're talking about a show that debuted. We are talking about a show on Amazon called The Boys, which debuted this summer, late July, and has just been taking the world by storm. And we are talking to an actor who plays one of the 7 superhero group. In the show, he plays Black Noir. We are speaking to Nathan Mitchell. Nate, welcome to Popternative, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. Man.
First off, we talked about it a little before we started. This show is awesome. Congrats to you and the whole cast and crew, man. It's been amazing. I bet it's just been insane on your end, the reception.
It's been pretty crazy. You know, like we went to Comic-Con, and that was my first Comic-Con experience. And just that, like seeing the fans, talking to people who are really like, I want to watch your show. I'm so excited for your show. And like the craze surrounding that, like that was the biggest thing.
Absolutely. When did you kind of find out about the Comic-Con? Was it kind of like as soon as it kind of like aired, or was it after that? How did that come to be?
So Comic-Con, we went to Comic-Con like the weekend before it aired, right? So to build up the hype, you know, and to show people and give them a sneak peek. And you know, I think that was the plan all along, but just, you know, it's just when you see people in person, you know, and you really get a sense of how stories affect them, you know, and how much they dive into the fantasy and the superheroes and everything. And just walking around, seeing people like dressed up as Pikachu or Bowser, you know, or Mario or Spider-Man, and just like, that's crazy. It's like another world. It's like summertime Halloween.
No, absolutely. That's insane. So many shows out there try their best to be unique, and sometimes it's hit or miss and different concepts, you know what I mean? And then you see it on the screen. This is a unique concept, and this was hit out of the park.
Yeah, it was. And I credit Eric Kripke. You know, he really like he knew what story he wanted to tell, you know, and obviously it comes from Garth Ennis, so it's both of them. But he really took it from the comics and put it into, you know, this real life 2019 situation that everybody can relate to. And then we're flipping superheroes on its head.
And it literally is, if you think about it, it is like superheroes on crack, if you think about it.
I mean, like, you know, somebody's on something in the show, right? Somebody's on something. And it's just this real take. You know, I think what makes it special is it's a good story about humans.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that sticks out to me the most, you know, and stuck out to me when I was reading the script is like we have this 7, right? And, you know, typically, you know, 7 could be seen as the bad guys, maybe, if you want to look at it that way. But aside from Homelander, you know, you don't have evil people, you have bad people.
Yeah.
You know, and we're on the top of this Mount Olympus of the world, right? And it's kind of like, even though we're at the top, we all still have our issues, and we're all still trying to stay at the top.
Yeah.
You know, we could lose our footing at any moment. And in that is our struggle. So even though we're up here and everybody else in the world is down here, we're still just like clinging on by the edge. We're like a foot away from falling off.
But it kind of shows the backstory of all you guys that, you know, it's like this corporate world with superheroes where these superheroes are kind of like paid to like do these events and do superhero stuff. And it just shows the back end of it, and how it's funny how the quote unquote, the boys who would be seen in the 7's eyes as like the villains, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like turned around almost.
Yeah, it is. And I would say the boys they're kind of like a pest.
Yeah.
Or a nuisance, or this little you know, group that's rising up to challenge us.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's a really interesting dynamic because the whole thing is like, at first it's like they're coming out of nowhere and we're not even aware of them. You know, we have to figure it out and then combat it, right?
No, absolutely. Let's talk about Black Noir. Let's talk about your character. Because that must have been a fun character to play, man.
It was. He is a fun character to play. You know, when I first got into it, the biggest thing that stood out to me was just the name, right? Black Noir. It makes you laugh. It's kind of funny. And in my audition, like, I brought a comedic element to it, right? And so when we start putting the suit together and getting everything together, it's like, how am I going to bring this guy to life? There's a lot of freedom because when it comes to Black Noir and all these characters, like, they've never been seen on screen before. And secondly, like, until the very end, Black Noir doesn't do much. He's just there, right? So you can really interpret him however you want. And what stood out to me is you see this intense, intimidating, badass suit. You know, it's cool as fuck. Like, you look at that guy, like, you're scared of him and you want to be him at the same time, right? But what was interesting to me is, like, what's behind the mask? What's going on underneath? You know? And that's the question that made me curious. And it's like, there's a humanity there, but what kind of humanity?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a little bit of, there's some hidden talents there too. You see with the piano. And something I really wanted to talk to you about. I mean, shout out to my buddy Vikram, big fan of the show as well. Wanted to know about the fight scene with Miko. That was just like an amazing fight scene. Yeah,
it was badass. It was badass, right? And I remember talking to, like, the stunt choreographer, the director, and really wanting to just get like a gritty take. You know how it's just like breathing. You know, it's just us breathing and us fighting each other. And, you know, Black Noir is efficient. He just wants to go for the kill, you know, but the female is vicious, right? And you see her just like take him out, right? And it's not something he expected.
No. But
he's ready to go. And there's just this, you know, feeling of meeting of equals and opposites in a way. You know?
Absolutely. But it must have been, I mean, when you looked at the script and you found out about that fight scene, for your character, what was kind of going through your head?
You know, that is something that people have been hyping up to me the entire season. Like, when Dan, our first director, came in, he was like, dude, I'm so jealous I'm not going to get to direct that episode. You know, it's so cool. You're going to get to do some cool stuff. And for me, you know, I've done Taekwondo before. You know, and so I was just excited to get into the choreography and really, really play with it, you know, and obviously it's a great fight scene, and it was a lot of fun, and I hope we have more down the road.
The show debuted end of July, I believe.
Yeah.
And it is the most binge watched show of the summer.
I didn't even know. I knew it was the most binge, but
it is. There was a lot of articles. That's what they're saying. So it hasn't even. I don't even think it's been out. It hasn't even been like 3 months.
No, it's been like 2.5 weeks or maybe 3.
So how have you? So, I mean, we talked about it a little before. I mean, you read the script, and you know you're not sure sometimes. But take us through that moment. After maybe it got released, if you got a cool text or a tweet, when you found out, like, oh man, this is going to be big. Like, was there kind of like a climactic event with the reception?
There was a little moment. I was talking to one of my buddies, and he was like, whoa, man, it's 91. It's like a 9.1 rating on IMDb, right? And I was like, no, that's just like 6 people, man. Like, it's just like, no, it's got a 9.1 rating, but that's a few critics, like a few reviewers. And then I went out and I checked it, and it was like 192 people.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, well, it's not like a huge amount, but it's a lot of people. And that number, to me, pointed to a consistency. And I didn't really put much thought into what rating it would get online. Like, it was just, I knew it was going to be a good show. I believed people would like it, and that was about it. But then when you see that, I was like, oh, okay. You know, how often is there a show that gets such a high rating that you're a part of, that premieres with such fanfare? That was a moment for me. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
But how often do you get a show that in different ways makes you laugh, makes you tear up, makes you cringe, makes you go, oh my God, makes you go, what just happened? Those are all the emotions that I was going through when I watched the show, man.
You know, it's funny because I remember the first time we watched it, Eric and Amazon and Sony had this screening for us. You know, so we watched it in a theater. We watched the first 3 episodes, and I was on the edge of my seat. Like I knew what was gonna happen, and I was still like, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen?" Like it still had me, you know, and it just came together better than I envisioned it. Like I saw what it could be, and then I saw it. I'm just like, they did all of that, and then they took it up a notch.
They did. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It was hit out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
I I find it interesting too
Yeah.
because this is a superhero show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're in an era now of, I think you mentioned Comic-Con, like geek culture is huge. It's
Yeah.
always been huge, but I think it's getting bigger and better. Do you agree that it's like the last 3 years, just there's been kind of a boom in the geek and comic culture?
All right, so yeah, with comic and geek culture, I feel like there's a way in which it's just becoming pop culture. You know, superheroes and superhero stories and movies and sci-fi and fantasy over the last 10 to 20 years, the technology has picked up so much, you know, the quality of the scripts, which has, you know, been great in a bunch of movies going back, but it's really become this central focus where I don't even think of it, you know, back in the day, geek and nerd was this kind of like, it was a niche, it was a subculture. And it still is, but it had more of like an outcast quality to it, you know. And nowadays I think it's like that's the cool thing, you know. It's cool to love superheroes, it's cool to love, you know, Lord of the Rings and sci-fi and fantasy and like things like Pokemon. Like people love that stuff, you know. And I think, yeah, I think there's a real embracing of it, and with that embracing it's just becoming more and more popular and more a part of the mainstream.
It's an escape too, right? Times are tough. People want to just kind of sit down and watch their favorite show or go to a movie and watch their favorite movie, right? It's like it's an escape.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's like you can get lost in this other world for 10 minutes or an hour or, you know, 2 hours. And, you know, I think for me, the biggest thing about superheroes and these stories is it gets us to look at our humanity in a different way. You know, and that's what's most impressive about The Boys to me is that it takes the superhero narrative deeper, you know, and through this narrative where we look at like the truth behind corruption, behind abuse of power, behind, you know, just the complexities of being a human being who has wants, needs, desires, and fears, and looking at humans through that superhero lens in a way that hasn't been done before, it gets us to take a deeper look at ourselves.
Absolutely. To piggyback on what you just said, what do you think, like, in terms of the elements of the show, the suspense, the action, the comedy, the, you know, situations where you're just kind of like, man, this is making me feel like uncomfortable, because that happens a few times. You know what I mean? There's a scene, I don't want to spoil anything, but Homelander's involved with something and he makes a decision that is a very not good decision that I actually lost sleep over that episode. I was like, I hope you know what I'm talking about.
Like we could be talking about a bunch of different scenes, to be honest with Homelander.
Yeah.
What,
Okay.
what episode are you speaking of in particular?
It involves something in the sky.
Okay, all right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, man, that episode, that sequence, man.
Yeah. So it's funny because, you know, from an acting perspective, you read it in the script and you see it. So sometimes you experience the script and sometimes you just know it coming up. But from my perspective, it's just like Homelander had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like someone was getting a little too close to something and he had to protect interests, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely is surprising when you see it and you're not expecting it. I saw it like on the level of script. You know, I was talking to Anthony, you know, about that day of shooting. I saw the early VFX cuts. So that, you know, it wasn't a super surprise element to me. It's just like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, is it a bird? Is it a plane?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know?
Take us through. So you had your character. So you're doing all these conventions and everything. Like you did the Comic-Con,
Mm-hmm.
and you know your character. has a suit and your face is kind of hidden, so people don't really know what you look like, right? So
Yeah.
you could be kind of walking into like a comic book shop, be like, "Yo, The Boys, it's a good show." You know what I mean? And maybe people don't even realize you're Black Noir. That's almost like a superpower in a sense too.
It is, and I have a funny story. So
Oh, I
when
can't
I
wait.
first got cast, like I'm a comic book fan. Like I love superheroes and everything. And I was in LA, and I was cast, and I was going to this comic book shop like I always went to, and I went up to the dude. I'm like, "Hey, do you guys have The Boys?" He's like, "Yeah, over there." I'm like, "Cool, I'm Black Noir," and he just gives me this dead stare. He's just like, "Okay." I'm like, it's too soon. It's too early. It's too early. That being said, we got off the plane on the way back from San Diego, and while we were leaving the airport, there's some fans waiting for us, and one of them walked up and he gave me a picture of Black Noir. And he's like, "Hey, can you sign this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So, you recognize me, and like, there's not as much anonymity as I thought, which is great. I think it's a balance of like, people are recognizing us from the show now, just here and there, and who knows how much that will pick up. But as far as Black Noir goes, it's like only people who are like really into the show.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the cool thing, because like you can still be on the DL a little bit.
It's funny you mentioned your love for comic books and going to shops, because I remember a few years ago, like Marvel the Runaways, I had Ryan Sands on the show too, and he was saying the same thing too, right? Like he loves comic books, and he's also like an illustrator as well, and he goes to shows. I'm wondering if so. There's obviously the audition and everything, and you're casted for the role. You know what I mean? Does that ever come into play though? The actors' kind of love for the subject of the TV show or the film? Do you ever, or is that doesn't have to do with it?
Sometimes it might, but I think it's different in every situation. A lot of actors who play superheroes maybe haven't read the comics, or maybe aren't very into superheroes. And some are big fans, right? Mm-hmm. So it really depends case to case. And nobody, like when this process was going on, no one was like, "So you love superheroes, right?" I just want to make sure. It's more about the acting and how you relate to the role and the character. And, whether you love superheroes or not, if you do, it's just a happy byproduct.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting because like I find this show is basically, not competing, but there's Marvel, there's DC, there's so many things in superheroes right now, and this concept kind of came out about these corporate superheroes, right? And I don't think people realize what the show is. Like they watch a trailer, and I think you know there's superheroes involved with it, but like I watched the trailer, then I watched the show, and I was like, man, like I didn't realize
it was all of this. Yeah, it's crazy because, a trailer wants to get people excited and get people into it, and there's so much to unpack, and there's so much to leave, to be a surprise.
Absolutely.
And striking that balance, making people excited versus revealing, or hinting at everything that's going on. It makes for a good little reveal when you watch the show and you see and you're like, oh, okay, we just did that. And we just did that, and we just did that. It's funny you said that too, though, because there's some moments in the trailer that I felt like I wanted people to see those things for the first time. That probably draws people in as well. But like, imagine the scene with Pop Claw in episode, I think it was 3 or 4. Imagine if you just saw that for the first time, like watch it and no warning, no context, nothing, and you're watching and you're just like, whoa, okay,
yeah. No,
that would have been mind blowing, right?
It would have been mind blowing. Well, Nathan, we'll wrap up here, but I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show to chat about The Boys. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know Mike Valente.
I do.
Me and Mike went to school together. Went to university together.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's a small world, man.
It's a very small world. Very small.
It's the world's too small. Sometimes, but I know a lot of people, so either it's a small world or I just know too many people.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to congratulate you and the cast and crew again for this amazing show. And if people haven't checked out The Boys, they got to check it out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's going to blow your mind if you haven't.
No,
It's
absolutely.
coming and it's going to be crazy.
For sure. Where could people follow you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter. It's Nate Mitchell. So ITSNATEMITCHELL. It's Nate Mitchell. That's my handle.
Awesome. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Nathan Mitchell and Black Noir and PD Beats signing off.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.